And I think we're live. Say something.
Hello. I
Hello.
am I am here with Devon,
I am
and
also
you
here.
hear me?
Yes, I am here. I am here with Ryan and also with Devon. Shall we just rock and roll, Ryan?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Devon.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm
Yeah.
Devon. And this week we will be talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. And also a bonus thing that Devon watched in honor of another Disney thing that's coming out because I haven't had a chance to be a Disney adult in a while. And Ryan, I don't care if you've watched this thing or not, you're going to have to listen to me talk about it. Um,
uh, you need to check your Facebook messages because you're going to be surprised about something.
oh no, hold on. Checking live. 1 second. Oh, I'm so pleased with you. I am so happy. All right, this is going to be a good conversation, ladies and gentlemen. So, before we get to that, we usually start the show by talking about what we had watched this week in pop culture. Ryan, have you watched anything in pop culture this week?
Not really. Kristen and I we're still doing our watch of ER all the way through. We're in season 3 because
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it before, and we watched Andor season 2,
Okay.
and the actor that plays Krennic
Yeah.
is also in The Outsider. That Brendan or what's his name? Beatman? No,
Jason Bateman.
Bateman. He's in The Outsider,
Yeah, he
and
is.
that Krennic from Rogue One and Andor is in The Outsider. So that
Oh,
made
that's
Kristen
cool.
think of that. So we're rewatching The Outsider right now, which
Ooh.
so much better than I remember.
I really liked The Outsider.
Yeah, I liked it the first time, but I'm like it's been so long since I've seen it. I've forgotten like 70% of it. Like I remember core pieces, but all of the little stuff in between the core plot points, it's like watching for the first time again.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
Mhm.
Um, we also have Alan, who can't be with us right now, at least at this very moment in time. He said that he watched Big Mouth. Ryan, have you seen Big Mouth?
I tried watching that show back when it like first came out.
Yeah,
It's really my thing.
not your thing. Is it the humor or is it the art style or is it both?
It's kind of a mixture of both.
Mm-hmm.
That I have a lot of teachers in my family, so I already hear enough stories about them dealing with adolescence that I don't really need it, like, Ren and Stimpy'd in front of my face at the same time.
Sure. I do wonder what this reads like to teachers because I don't think I have teachers in my family. If you're a teacher in my family and I forgot you, I'm sorry. But I don't have teachers that I talk to very regularly. So I don't get this perspective on like what a teen is like growing up. I love the idea of the hormone monsters quite a lot. Like as a personification of why they're so angsty about things. I think that's fun and like a fun twist to put on it. I also just really like Nick Kroll and John Delaney.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or John Mulaney, sorry.
those are, yeah, those are really good guys. They're really talented. The concept of it is really cool.
Yeah.
And under different circumstances, I might be more mentally capable of being able to kind of like enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Um, but it is basically just like imagine having to deal with the source material day in and day out of what that show is based on,
Mm-hmm.
and then hearing that from like family members of like stories of like of them seeing like 4 or 5 kids having like the most embarrassing moment of their life happen or something like that, and
Yeah.
like in like one day having like two students do something really stupid in class, and that's going to be the one thing that they think about for the rest of their lives and fall asleep that keeps them up for an extra hour.
Yep. Yep.
So like they see that every day, and then you've got this show, and like it of like second hand queasiness I get when I watch it.
Yeah.
So like that's why I haven't really gotten into it. But again, the people behind it are very talented. The concept is very interesting. So like I I get why it's popular. I
Yeah.
just
Just not
I
Not
know
your
people who
thing.
are too close to the source material. Like it to be.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Well, how about something that I watched this week? I watched A Real Pain and for some reason chose the Spanish poster. So Un Dolor Real.
A real pain.
Yeah, A Real Pain. It is Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg.
Ah, okay.
Um, this is a new movie released this year. It's a 2025 movie. I loved it, and you lot are gonna have to watch this. Have you seen anything about it?
It sounds familiar. I know Kristen and I have watched like 30 trailers to shows and movies and stuff over the past like 48 hours. So
Yeah.
I think that might have been one of them.
What was the trailer that stuck out to you that you watched then?
Um, it it has to do with two more Jack Quaid properties, actually.
Nice. Glad
Um,
he's getting work.
so there's one where he plays a schizophrenic, where
Oh.
he this is from the trailer. I cannot remember the name. Jack Quaid plays a schizophrenic that lives on his own that witnesses a kidnapping. He goes to the police. The police don't believe him because they look him up and he's known, like he has a police file because
Yeah.
of his mental illness. And so he goes to the grumpy cop neighbor next door, who really wants nothing to do with him just because he wants to be left alone, not because he doesn't like that character personally. He's just the grumpy old man
He's
neighbor
just
that
too
wants
old
to
for
be
this
just
shit.
yeah.
The Murtaugh
So,
complex.
but but because Jack Quaid's character is so like helpless, he's like fine, 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 I'll help you. And then like I think it turns into kind of like a buddy comedy
Oh,
type,
funny.
like thing where like they go off to try to like solve, like who, it's like who was this girl that you saw who got kidnapped? Like let's try to figure this out. Like that's what the whole premise of the movie is.
I
And
like that.
it looks heartwarming and funny. The other one is called Novocaine, I believe, and it's basically Jack Quaid playing a character who has a medical condition where he can't feel pain,
Oh.
and he's a bank teller. So like he's not really a superhero. He's just a bank teller,
Okay.
and a friend of his gets taken hostage and kidnapped, and he decides to use his medical condition to his advantage to get his friend back.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's basically like and I think someone says even in the trailer, like, dude, you're a superhero. And he's like, well, not really. And he's like, because there's scenes where like he does stuff to try to like because he knows he's not going to be able to feel pain, but he knows it's going to cause like really serious damage.
Yeah.
So like you still see him hesitate to like do stuff because he knows that he can do it because he can't feel pain, but he knows it's going to cause him damage, but he has to do it. And it's still him going like, and then he goes and does
That's
it.
fun. That's
So
cool. That's
both,
a
so
yeah.
yeah, both of those look good. So I'll be checking those out at some point.
I like that. That's a really interesting spin, especially that Novocaine one. It's a really interesting spin on that because I think I've seen that, and they're essentially like budget superhero, and I'm glad that that's not
Yeah.
what he is.
Well, I don't know if that's what it turns into or not, but it definitely has promise that it might be actually its own thing. So I'm hoping anyway.
That's pretty cool. So then that brings us to one of our two slightly main topics for today. In honor of the new Lilo and Stitch live action movie that's out now, which, depending on what review site I'm looking at, is either the worst thing Disney's ever done in a century ever. How dare you even consider this? Or it's actually pretty good for a Disney live action remake. In honor of that, we watched arguably the best of any of the Lilo and Stitch sequels, because there's a lot of them, Ryan. I don't know if you knew this. Lilo and
Yeah,
Stitch
no,
2,
I
Stitch has a
saw that.
glitch. How Okay, so first off, tell me your history with Lilo and Stitch as a franchise.
So I remember when the first one came out and I watched it. I forget what year that came out. I know that was what year did the first one come out?
Ooh, 2001?
2001. So like I was a freshman in high school. So yeah. So I was freshman in high school or a I was either a freshman in high school or a sophomore in high school, depending on when that came out. So I wasn't the target audience, but I saw it anyway because it looked interesting. The Stitch looked like a menace, and I had friends who had young siblings, and my friends enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, you know, I'll see this, and it was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
It's nothing that really stuck with me because again, I saw it when I was like either 15 or 16 years old, so it's not like one of my core Disney movies.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew that there were sequels. I didn't realize how many sequels there
Oh,
were until
Ryan.
I put on Disney Plus and was like, because I just looked up Lilo and Stitch and then went to like, you know, like recommended on that because I figured that'd be the fastest way for me to get to the sequel. And I
Mm-hmm.
just looked for the word glitch because that's all I could remember for like what the title was.
Yeah.
And then I saw plainly that it just said Lilo and Stitch 2 and then the titles. I was like, okay, good.
That's the one.
I only got about 25, 30 minutes into it, just so you know. So I
That's
didn't
okay.
watch
That's
the whole
okay.
thing.
It
But
wasn't
yeah.
required viewing for today, but I'm glad that you watched any amount of it. That makes me incredibly happy. So, for those of you that, so first off, I have to correct myself. Lilo and Stitch was 2002. I said a year off. But it was the other sequels are Stitch the movie, Leroy and Stitch, and then of course the beloved Lilo and Stitch the series. There's oh, and then apparently there's one called The Origin of Stitch, but we're not going to talk about that one. Uh, this is kind of one of the long line of Disney sequels that are unnecessary. This didn't need to happen, but it did anyway. I think the main claim to fame in this one is that the voice actor for this one, for Lilo, was busy recording for the series, so they swapped her out for Dakota Fanning in this one. So the voice of Lilo in this one only, is Dakota Fanning, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty cool. I like Dakota Fanning and didn't know that when I saw her. So
Yeah.
I know that I'm basically, I think you basically answered this earlier. But Ryan, what did you think of Lilo and Stitch 2? Stitch has a glitch.
um, I need to watch the first one again,
Okay.
but it reminded me of the first one.
Yeah.
Like just the lines, the quality of it just reminded me of what I kind of remember from the first Lilo and Stitch movie.
Yeah.
So I have to, be positive. Uh, like I definitely have a positive feeling about it. I do have to say though that at the beginning I remembered I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. The aliens live with them now."
Yeah.
Like, and so like I found that to be humorous, like them dealing with the fact that the mad scientist and the like government bureaucrat assistant guy, skinny eyeball thing
Yeah.
is like living with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean like that I found funny. Um I think my cat found it more entertaining though than I did.
Why?
And I sent you pictures. So we found out that my one cat, Mac, the one that came from the bad hoarding situation, loves cartoons. You put anything animated on, and he will sit and stare at the screen. But when I put this one on, he jumped up on top of the three speakers I have from my surround sound in front of my TV.
Yeah. Yeah, your mic left in the middle of that, but I'm really happy that your cat enjoyed it. It's very funny. Say something?
Be interesting.
Hey, there you are.
There we go.
Nice.
I was gonna say it's gonna be interesting if my sound goes dead. It's
Listen,
gonna
I've
be
done a solo show before. I'll do it again.
yeah.
Anyway,
um, yeah, but he loved it. I liked it enough that like I wouldn't mind going back and just like finishing it at some point when I have time.
yeah.
So
So this
yeah.
might pull you back into it. Did you Did the voice of Nani, her sister, sound familiar to you?
So it did. It reminded me of what she sounded like in the first movie to a point. Um, what I can remember. So one thing about me is I am in un unless I have an epiphany moment with like listening to like voice acting, I literally don't think about who is voicing characters in animated stuff. It
Okay,
is the last thing I think about. So it
you
didn't
might
stand out to
you
me.
might be surprised. Uh, Let me see if you can guess. I don't know if you know the actor's name. I didn't know the actor's name, to be fair, but
Okay.
you would certainly know the character's name. This actor that plays Nani is in Wayne's World and is in True Lies.
Wayne's World and True Lies.
Mm-hmm. Do
The
you
only
know
one
who
I
it
can
is?
think of is Wayne's girlfriend.
Yeah, that's it. It's Tia Carey. She plays
Oh, okay.
Cassandra in Wayne's World and Juno in True Lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's even in like she is also an actor in the new live action Lilo and Stitch, which I thought is cool that they
Huh.
brought her back.
Yeah.
But I thought that
That
was
is cool.
interesting. Um Honestly, in terms of like what there is to say about Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch is a glitch. It's one of those like directed to VHS Disney sequels. It's
Yeah.
not. I mean, it's repeating the themes of the first one, but in the second one, I think the animation's arguably worse, and it could just be the way that I watched it. But there was a really, really like, for me, off-putting thing where, and I don't know if you caught this, the backgrounds were all really still. Like there wouldn't be wind blowing through trees. There wouldn't be like if
Yeah.
they showed a river or water, it was never moving. It was static, and then the characters would just kind of bounce around on top of like a static background, and like that part bugged me.
See, that I didn't notice. Simply because so I've only ever watched, counting Lilo and Stitch 2, maybe four of the like animated Disney sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I've seen a part of Little Mermaid 2. Um,
You poor man.
it just just because I was curious. It
Yeah.
was like back when we first got Disney Plus, and I didn't realize the amount of sequels that they had made to the stuff. To
Yeah.
like the to the like second or the first gen, second gen, you know what the terminology is, but to like Cinderella and Snow
Yeah.
White, and how they kind of went back in the 90s and made all the like, direct to home, sequels and stuff. So I was curious, so I watched a few minutes of like each, of like each one. I think I didn't pick up on it because I kind of just like it's like this wasn't in theaters, so like, this is gonna have like daytime TV feel to it,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of what I ran with. So
Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair. I think the only thing that's worth bringing up is so how far in the plot did you get?
the teacher came over. Oh, no, 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 no. They were watching the like black and white science fiction movie.
Yeah, gotcha.
It was towards the end. They were wearing the Dealey Boppers.
Perfect. Notice that Plinkley in that scene is wearing a Donald Duck shirt because, of course, he is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
but there's two things I want to point out. First off, I hate this, and it bugged me when I was a kid, and it bugs me as an adult. That Lilo's mom is just Lilo with a flower in her hair. They didn't like animate a slightly different looking Lilo.
Well, that I mean, that's lazy. That's cost saving. That's laziness for cost saving sake. And to be honest, that was probably like a still or an artist rendering of like this is what she's going to look like when she's doing her dance stuff at the beginning of the first movie.
Yeah,
Like it was
yeah,
probably a picture pulled from like like the like
like
artist
concept art or
sketchbooks.
something. Yeah,
Yeah. It was probably pulled from that for like cost saving purposes, but at the same time, this is a movie that was created for like younger elementary school kids. So like I get it.
Can I tell you my favorite this movie's really lazy part though?
Okay.
It's gonna take an explanation because you haven't gotten here yet. Did you get to
Okay,
why
that's fine.
Stitch has a glitch?
No.
Because when
No.
Jamba made him, he didn't charge him completely. That is the and he's running out of batteries, Stitch. And batteries are a thing in this or something. So he's running out of batteries.
Hmm.
And in the end of the movie, Stitch dies. And genuinely he dies. Like his battery gets to zero and he's like dead in Lilo's arms. And Lilo cries. And then Stitch's battery fills all the way back up and he comes back to life. And they're all happy that Stitch is alive. And Plinkly turns to Jamba and goes, "How could this have happened?" And Jamba just goes, "Nobody knows." And it's never discussed again.
Oh
I
God.
love it. They spend so much time like showing you the history of why Stitch has a battery and like showing you the problem of his battery running out. In the end, they don't resolve it. Jamba just goes, "Meh," and life moves on and they all do a hula dance together. To no one, by the way. The crowd is empty. The chairs are empty. It is an empty hula scene. It is so lazy and so freaking funny. This is why I love these movies, is because they're like, well, you gotta end on a hula scene. Just make them do a hula. And like, it's so good. It's so good. Oh,
Oh, that's good. See, and it's the it's reasons like that why I never cared for
yeah.
like any of the Disney animated sequels. Like none. I was like, you know, Pocahontas, Cinderella, you know, all of those ones. They're standalone. They're all standalone. Happily ever after. It's the way it ended. Going forward, we're good.
My,
I
my
don't need to
favorite.
see Stitch literally die in the little girl's arms.
My favorite quality of Disney sequel is the hidden prequel that they always do, where it's like, by the way, did you know that when Tarzan was younger, he had these adventures, or that when the Fox and the Hound were younger, they joined
Oh,
a band? I hate that. That is
yeah.
like, yeah,
My pinnacle of that is when The Lion King 2.1 or 2.
one and a half.
Or that that is when I was like, I think that was the first time I audibly said out of frustration, they're just grabbing money.
Mystery
That's just a
Science
money
Theater
grab.
3000, The Lion King edition.
Yeah, that's exactly what that was.
Yeah,
And I'm just
100%
like, you
it
gotta
was.
be like you've got to be kidding me.
No, they made
They
one song
already
for that. They made the Dig a Tunnel song.
they 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 already, as far as I'm concerned, they already tarnished the line with that stupid Mail Day song that they added in like 10 years after the release.
Oh
Or is that
yeah,
Today's
the
Mail
Morning Report.
or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. They already tarnished that movie because they inserted that like 10 to 15 years after the movie actually released. Like it like I've I haven't rewatched The Lion King in full since I tried to rewatch it once and I realized that they did that and I stopped watching it then and there.
You were
And I'm
like,
like,
no,
no, I'm not.
no more.
No,
You know what's
no
really
more.
funny is I had, and this will be the last thing I say about a Disney movie today. I hope.
Hmm.
I for years of my entire adult life, I have been saying to people offhandedly, "Yeah, Lion King is just Hamlet. It's just Hamlet. You know what I mean? You know the plot of
Yeah.
Hamlet. You know the plot of Lion King, and like it's just Hamlet." And then one time I had someone go, "Really? Explain that." And I go, "Oh no." Um,
You ran into someone who probably didn't really know Hamlet that
no,
well.
I ran into
That's
someone who really knows
yeah.
Hamlet, and
Oh, okay.
they went, okay, so your reasoning is that, a brother kills his brother and then his son gets revenge. Is that the whole reason you call it Hamlet? And I'm
Oh
like,
no. Okay, so it was one of those people. Oh
yes,
no.
yeah, and I was like,
Oh
oh
no.
shit, I'm out of my depth in this. And you know what? They had a point. They really had a point. It's not really Hamlet. There's the most tenuous of connections, and the second that I got challenged on it, it's just like I watched like my worldview crumble, and I'm like, oh yeah, right,
Well,
I wasn't right about this.
I know exactly what you did because I'm guilty of doing this, and it happens to me too, where you like something, you're like, oh, this kind of reminds me of this. And then later on, you see someone else on more of a bigger platform, or you read it in an article, someone else reference that same thing, even even if it's just like a real basic surface level like explanation
Yeah.
or similarity, and you just kind of run with it because it's easier just to say that than it is to accidentally find yourself in a 10-minute conversation with someone that you didn't want to have. You just wanted to convey that, hey, I like that same thing that you just mentioned, and then just leave it at that.
And you know what's
So you catch those little catchphrases, and
it
then
did,
unfortunately, those can get you in trouble
and they
because you're
did.
like,
'Cause it was
yeah,
right.
you're like, no, no, please don't take it this way. It'd be like, no, I'm not as simple as,
No,
I'm
no.
not that simple.
I'm
I swear I'm
no,
not.
I'm actually more simple-minded than you think I am. It's a
Oh,
catchphrase I
okay.
pulled out of a hat. Because to be fair, when you said I hate Lion King 1.5, I had something prepared for that too, and was gonna go,
Yeah,
Lion King 1.5 is nothing but Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. And I've said that
yeah,
before, which is almost a sequel to Hamlet, but not really. But it's told from the perspective of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, a lot like
yeah,
how Lion King 1.5 is told from the perspective of Timon and Pumbaa. But that's where the similarities end. So I
yeah.
almost said that to you and went, "No, you've been wrong before." Like that's where this is coming from. So if you're that person, I know you do sometimes watch this. Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate you. I needed it. I learned and grew as a person. Thank you. Uh, and that's all I have to say about Disney. Moving swiftly on to this week's actual main topic, or subtopic number 2, Mission
Yeah.
Impossible Dead Reckoning. Sorry, the full title, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, knowing that we are never going to get a Part 2. Instead, we're getting one called The Final Reckoning with no part after it. I'm not bitter, you're bitter. So, Ryan, tell me about your history with the Mission Impossible franchise.
Okay, so my relationship with the Mission Impossible franchise began with the first one that came
Okay.
out and ended with the second one that ever came out. Um, Simply because around that same time is when like Austin Powers became really popular. Um, we were still dealing with the like early nine. We were still dealing with the '90s slash early millennium version of James Bond, um, and there were some other media properties around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And around that same time too, my dad introduced me to the original like Mission Impossible series because I was interested in the movies, and he was
Right,
like, "Here,
right.
this is what it's based off of." So he had me watch some of the episodes, which I really wasn't. I was at first really interested in, and then the disillusionment of like a teenager in the early millennium watching something from the 70s kind of hit,
I had the same
and
thing.
like that's not as good as I thought it was.
Yep.
And but then I came across the original Get Smart and Adventures on Nick at Night.
Right, right.
So like that kind of came around at the same time. And when you get that perfect storm of like all of these spy, like lighthearted spy stuff coming out at like the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and like other big box office like that has more like uh that has more legend or more history behind it than like the Mission Impossible series did.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible kind of like fell into the basement for me. So I like to joke. My go-to phrase, like you did with the Lion King and Hamlet,
Yeah.
my go-to thing was that after Limp Bizkit did the intro for Mission Impossible 2, there was no way it could ever get any better. So I never watched the rest of
It's a good one though.
them.
So you're jumping into this then, like, quite a long way when it's kind of on its way. There should be some new faces in this one for you. There should be some returning faces. What was it like hopping into this? Was it pretty easy transition?
So I need to admit something, and this is going to make this episode very interesting.
I can't
So
wait.
I thought we were supposed to watch Ghost Protocol.
Ah! So you watched Ghost
I
Protocol?
I watched Ghost Protocol. I thought to myself like 2 nights ago when I watched it, I was like, I was like, which one was it again? And like I was holding the phone and I was about to ask like, hey, which Mission Impossible is it again? And then for some reason, a little voice in the back of my head went like, Ghost Protocol. It was Ghost Protocol.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. Maybe because I've heard you and Alan talk about the different, bring up the titles here and there during
Yeah.
conversations. My thought was Ghost Protocol. Well, of course it's Ghost Protocol. The only reason why I would think Ghost Protocol is if it was Ghost Protocol because I haven't seen these movies.
Right. So why
So
would you
I
have come up?
thought,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I watched the one from 2011.
I love it because we can still have these same relevant conversations, right? I have a couple of
Okay.
facts about the new one that I think are going to be particularly interesting for you specifically based on conversation we had last week. But tell
Okay.
me about the vibe. And actually, believe it or not, I prepared for such an eventuality. I
Ah,
we didn't plan this, by the way, anybody, but I can actually change the picture and in fact planned to change the picture. So now we don't need to just talk about Mission Impossible, a specific one.
okay.
So we're good now, man. We're good. So first off, tell me what it
Okay.
was like hopping into Ghost Protocol, because if I'm correct, these Mission Impossible movies, to me, I've seen all of them. Each one is
Okay.
defined by a stunt, right? So in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, the one that I had seen for the podcast
I was
today,
supposed to watch.
it's all
I was
right.
supposed to
The main
watch.
stunt for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning was him driving a motorcycle off of a cliff and skydiving off of that motorcycle off of the cliff. That's the
That's it?
main. That's the main. Ooh, I have a lot of history on that. It is actually a really involved thing. The fact that they
Okay.
got such a clean shot and it was literally months, if not years, of practice to lead up to that. But if I remember right, is Ghost Protocol the one where he scales the Burj Khalifa?
The skyscraper. And yes,
Yes.
I really need to talk about. So this movie did a couple things.
Okay.
Ghost Ghost Protocol kind of made me realize that one, I was a bit too harsh on like not wanting to watch these movies
Okay.
when I was younger because when Tom Cruise is very hit or miss for me,
Yeah.
and when he's in something at this point, and ever since he went bananas on Oprah, he really hasn't been, you know, where he decided to jump up and down on the couch and proclaim,
Oh yeah.
like and
Oh yeah.
profess his love, that whole thing. He like he kind of, and I really hate the fact that I did this, but whatever. Like he lost the allure that I had for him as an action star when that happened.
Sure.
Because it's not just that action in itself, it and it wasn't even at that moment that it happened. Like I wasn't watching Oprah when it happened. My mom would always watch Entertainment News, so obviously it was on like that evening, the day that happened.
Yeah. Of
It
course.
was that moment combined with kind of the fallout of their marriage because of the Church of Scientology
Yeah.
that made me go, I don't really care what if he's in a movie or not. And so the majority of stuff that I've seen since that, like, of the majority of stuff that's come out of his since that moment, I've kind of brushed off to the side of just Tom Cruise action movie. Don't care. And just kind of like gone through life that way.
Okay.
Um, there is so much more to these movies than him. Or,
Yeah.
well, I mean, at least to Ghost Protocol, there was more than just him.
Mm-hmm.
Other actors had like key lines. They had the punchline. He wasn't the one doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger,
No.
like lines. Like other people had, kind of had them too. So I appreciate the movies this movie a little bit more, and I am more apt to watch the other ones kind of on my own to a point.
That's incredible.
If we don't do them on here. But in capital letters, I cannot I cannot get the opening of Austin Powers 2 out of my head whenever he's on scene. Unfortunately, Austin Powers and some other media properties did such a good job making fun of these type of action movies
Mm-hmm.
from the early millennium that I don't know if I could actually watch these movies for any other reason just to get a little chuckle here and there.
That's so funny. So was it that you had enjoyment for this movie more from the irony of it all than you did the actual action? Like more of an ironic, like, oh, look at them doing a serious movie that's been kind of jibed all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went because like it's like I've seen so many of the James Bond movies and I like them
Mm-hmm.
a lot. I've seen other spy type movies that aren't as like mainstream that now that like I'm watching this and I'm getting the whole like American James Bond, American James Bond,
Yeah.
American James Bond, and you know like when he does certain things, um, and even the whole thing in Ghost Protocol about like him and his wife and like the thing around that,
Mm-hmm.
and that just reminds me about James Bond and his wife and like the thing around him and that and in some of their movies. And it was more like ironically I was entertained by it because it was kind of like, oh, okay, so this isn't really as like be like, huh. It's not that this wasn't like I wasn't expecting it to be bad. I didn't think that they'd be bad. It was just like, huh, I was a bit too harsh on this than what I should have been. Even though this stunt reminds me of a Jackie Chan movie, this stunt reminds me of this stunt from like James Bond from a movie from the 80s and like so on and so forth. And
You know,
yeah,
it's really interesting because I had almost your exact reaction to Tom Cruise and Tom Cruise action movies for a really long time. Uh, and he's honestly crawled his way back into like being a very respected actor for it in my mind, mostly for a
yeah.
couple of reasons. I listened to this podcast. I really love it. It's called You're Wrong About, and they had an entire episode of You're Wrong About Tom Cruise on Oprah's couch. And the thing that's interesting about that a lot of people forget is the last time Tom Cruise was on Oprah before he did the couch thing, Oprah goes, "Oh, Tom, you have a girlfriend, I heard." And he didn't. And Tom goes, "No, but when I do, you'll see me jumping up and down on your couch." And then his next appearance, he delivered on that promise. And that
Yeah.
was why he did what he did. But nobody was like, "Oh, he made good on his promise." They're like, "Look at this nut job." And that was such a weird turning point in his career because up until that point he was making movies like Vanilla Sky. He was making these like really like serious heady dramas, and he wanted to be taken very seriously as an actor. And I think the action movies that he had done was just kind of like, oh, it's a fun action movie to fill out my portfolio, but I want to be a
Yeah.
very serious actor like I was in A Few Good Men, for example. And from that point on, he just went straight action. He went, "This is the only thing I'm doing, and I'm going to do it very well." And it's a like a well-known thing that after the last viewing of every movie before it's released to the public, he and the director always watch it together. After the last viewing or the viewing before it goes out to the public, he turns to the director and goes, "We could have done better." No matter the quality of the movie, no matter what, he always goes, "We could have done better." And I do think that he takes this very, very seriously. Like I think he's like the good version of what Vin Diesel thinks the Fast and Furious movies are. I think that's what this is. Where like Vin Diesel's like, "These are serious, heady movies," and meanwhile they're going to space in a Mazda, and like Tom Cruise is making genuinely, I mean, genuinely entertaining.
It was a Ferrero, but okay.
It did, fair. As long as it wasn't a
It was a
Reliant Robin.
Pontiac, but okay.
But like, I genuinely think he is, and for that reason, I'm like gaining a lot of respect for him, and then especially seeing everything that goes behind all of the stunts he does, because he still does his own stunts. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, did you genuinely like the movie, or ironically like the movie? Where would you rate it essentially?
I mean, I I started off ironically liking it,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the whole Moscow thing.
Yeah.
Then when he woke up in the hospital and he had to get out of the hospital, and that whole thing of
Yeah.
like him getting with his crew and like the government doing the whole ghost protocol thing,
Yeah.
that's when things started to change a little bit, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this actually has some pace to it.
Yeah.
This actually has like a real American view on something like this actually happening. I could see our government doing exactly this in this situation. Okay, that makes sense. But then we got to the scene where he's crawling like Spider-Man along the window in Dubai.
Yeah.
And that's one of the moments where I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I like a good spy movie. I like gadgets. I like, phones that shoot poison darts. I like cars that have, heat-seeking rockets behind the headlights. I like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons why I like the movie Triple X so much, even though it's not really a good movie. It's still fun, and it has all of the, like, dumb, like mid to late 19th century type spy stuff in it from, like, the Cold War that I really love.
Yeah.
Um, and when you just uh, and then when you but at the same time it's like whether or not the missiles work in the car
Mm.
doesn't determine if like the spy dies in the car.
Right.
And I feel like for like if it was a different character on the side of the building,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have rolled my eyes because it's Tom Cruise. He's the main character of this franchise.
Yeah.
Like, granted, I'm watching this movie like 14, 13 years removed from that. Maybe people were thinking this is the last one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to die in this. And like the other part of the crew has to like pick this up. And then this is the last Mission Impossible movie that there is. So like maybe I'm losing that tension. Like watching these movies, watching any movie of him in a life and death situation. Eh.
You know what I think it is? I think that specifically those scenes, because I mean, like I said, every Mission Impossible movie, at least in the modern age, is kind of defined by a single stunt, and that's what the marketing
Yeah.
pitches. I mean, for the most recent one, not Dead Reckoning Part Two, but the Final Reckoning, the trailer
Yeah.
for the movie, or one of the trailers I saw, was just someone going, "Oh my god, I think we lost Tom," like, thinking that
Yeah.
the stunt had killed him, and like I think what you're supposed to take away from that isn't necessarily the tension of, oh my gosh, is he gonna live or die? Because of course he's gonna live, right? Of course, when he
Yeah.
parachutes down to the Orient Express from the top of a mountain, he's not gonna splat on the train and the movie's over. That's a real thing that
Yeah.
happens in Dead Reckoning, by the way. Um, but I think it's supposed to be the spectacle of Tom Cruise having actually done the thing. And I can't tell
Yeah.
if it was
I
it
get that.
was
Yeah.
it this one, or was it Rogue Nation where he, or yeah, was it this one, Rogue Nation, where he like hangs onto the side of an airplane as it's taking off?
So I've
Did you get
seen the
that one?
clips from that.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't in this one.
Okay, it must have
I've
been Rogue
seen the
Nation.
clips of that. Um, but he does something similar in the Mummy movie that he was in.
He does.
And I almost brought this up as an exception because, I mean, like every other person my age or like in my age bracket, when that when his Mummy movie came out, we all just kind of like, really? you're gonna redo that. Like those movies are perfect. Why do
Yeah.
you need to touch them? Like, you know. But so I never gave it a chance because I just kind of assumed that that's what it was. Because I think I remember hearing someone saying something about a reboot or a remake,
Yeah.
and like I like just wiped them right off. And of course, because it was the whole Tom Cruise thing and everything I knew about what happened with like not necessarily again like it was the couch thing on top of how their relationship ended
Yeah.
and like all of the and all of the crap that comes out of celebrity, like breakups. That was just like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I'm just whatever because I used to be a big fan of his. Um, Kristen watched that Mummy movie and she was like, "You need to see this. This is up your alley. It's not as bad as you think."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a chance." The fact that that movie got so much hate that they were never able to create the sequels for that they wanted to breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And I had it myself for not giving that movie a chance.
It would have been cool. I like Universal Monsters enough
Yeah,
that I would have loved to have seen the
same
universe with
here.
them. Yeah.
Same here. And I I was at that point before watching this movie. Like that's where I was mentally with Tom Cruise
Yeah.
as an actor in movies was being upset at the Mummy for not giving it a chance because of my like towards Tom Cruise and like
Right.
and the action movies. And this movie on top of that is like,
You cut out again. No, I don't hear you anymore. No.
and I really need to get this looked at.
There
There
you
we
go.
go, green box.
Nice.
So what I said was, regardless of all of that, I am still not watching the action movies with him and Cameron Diaz. I'm still not giving those a chance.
That's fair. That's fair. I haven't
I'm,
seen those either.
I'm not.
I get it.
But I will on the rest of them, like because this was just a lot better than I expected it to be. Even though it happened to be the wrong one. Uh,
Good. Well, that's good. So I have
and
a
I
couple.
and I feel bad about that.
That's okay.
I do.
Look, man, listen, Ryan. Genuinely, how long have we been doing this?
Yeah, it's been like
This
years.
is the first time any of us have gotten the movie different ever. So, listen, the fact that it happened once is totally awesome because
Yeah.
we can pivot, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But I was wondering in
Okay.
this movie specifically, and this came out around the same time, the plan was to give the franchise over to Jeremy Renner's character when Tom Cruise decides to step away. How did you feel about that decision? I mean, obviously it didn't happen, or it hasn't happened yet, and probably may not happen, but having seen what you saw of Jeremy Renner, he plays a character, I think his name's Brant in this.
He's the one that was supposed to be watching him and his wife when they were on their honeymoon or
Yes.
whatever, right? Or like vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know him. Obviously, he's been in a lot of stuff. I know him primarily as the like main character from The Hurt Locker.
Right, yes. That's absolutely
That's
that was
what
like his
I
first
like.
big break, I think.
Yeah, and I know that he's been in other stuff, but that's primarily what I know him as, or not as, but like from. Um, and I honestly don't know because there's certain parts of my life that when I look back, they're just kind of like a blur. Like I get really envious of people who can like sit up and say, well, 2013 me looking at this would have said this, but this has happened in my life. Like I can't
I'm not that guy.
sometimes put myself back in my old shoes again because I've just changed so much. I honestly don't know how I would have felt about the Mission Impossible franchise
Yeah.
if he would have been the one like to like transfer over
Mhm.
and like he's now the main character. I don't know if that would have made me watch them. I don't know if that would have made me go like still not watching it. I have no idea.
Well, it was
um
it's always hard to take
Yeah.
the reins from like a major kind of beloved character like that to give it because they tried it with the Bourne movies. because it was always Matt Damon, and then they switched it to Joseph Gordon-Levitt for a movie, and like it didn't do well.
Now, I'm gonna come off as a hater so much. I'm actually gonna live up to my one Apple Podcast comment hater that I had that one time.
Aww.
Um, I never, I don't, I never cared for those movies either.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, no, I have never seen one of them because it's just like I like Matt Damon. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's Matt Damon, right? Yeah.
It is Matt Damon, yeah.
Like yeah, so like I'm fine with him. I don't have any issues with him. It's just like the Mission Impossible movies were coming out. Okay. Well, we just had the American Treasure movies coming out. We have the Mission Impossible movies coming out. We have new James Bond movies coming out. I still have Austin Powers stuck on my head. We have we have the Get Smart movie that came out with The Rock and the guy from The Office. I can't
Oh,
remember his name.
Steve Carell.
With the yeah with Steve Carell, and I really love the Get Smart movie.
Yeah.
Um, that having a Matt Damon Mission Impossible James Bond spy-ish type genre movie was just kind of like, okay, I'm good. Like that's one that is one too many sport cars on the lot for me to even care to look at. I'm not sure if that's a good an analogy or not, but that's kind of where I'm at with like
I live near
some of these
Carlisle. I've been
properties.
to a car show. I get you, man.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
okay, like
I
yeah.
look for me the big appeal of the Bourne movies was very similar to the appeal of the John Wick movies, where it had
Okay.
been a major step change in how action was filmed to the point where the camera pulled back a little bit more. There were fewer cuts in the action. There was a lot more visceral kind of weight to the action that happened. And for me, it was really, really unique and refreshing to see action filmed in that way. Whereas you got, the typical James Bond movie filming it very differently. There's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of like, it
Yeah.
happened off camera. And this one, no, you're in the middle of the action very kind of viscerally. And that was more of the appeal of the movies to me than anything else. So I wonder if going back and watching it would be similar in the same way that like to how like when Romana watched The Matrix, for example. Romana just watched The Matrix like a year ago maybe, and she's like, I didn't think the movie was going to be this slow and have this little action
Yeah.
in it. And like as a kid, I remember it being the most actiony action movie I've ever seen. And oh my gosh, he dodges a bullet and then he does the thing with the guns. But like that's like the only action in the movie. And like I forgot about that because it was like literally genre defining for the time. But like nowadays, it's kind of standard. And like John Wick's kind of
Well,
gone that way too because people are kind of copying the John Wick style now.
yeah, well it's it's the pacing. And
Yeah,
it's the same thing with I'm not going to get into I am not going to get into attention spans
sure,
and
sure.
like that debate on this whole thing, but it's the same thing on just in general for like people consuming media. It's harder for someone in their 20s today to sit down and watch like uh like three Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
Like just be able just to sit and watch and not get bored, not like uh, um isn't to not get antsy as compared to like the compared to the ability of a 20-year-old, let's say in the 70s,
yeah,
to be able to like sit down and like watch three movies. It's just media is different, consumption is different, and there's not a lot of tolerance for dead air.
yeah,
And there's a lot of dead air in the Matrix that is, you know, they're setting up the scene. There's body language that's setting up a line, and it's kind of like when we did the first Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah.
In my memory of the Mission Impossible movie, pure action.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all of that stuff. Action, 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 action. And then we watched it. And like there's a little bit of action in the elevator at the beginning. And then there was a lot of setup
Yeah.
and like maybe some running. And then there was the major action sequence at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Alan and I had that discussion of like, was it a thriller or was it an action movie?
Right.
Because of the amount of action in it. And my nostalgic ass was like, it's an action movie.
Right.
And Alan's like, no.
It's
fairly.
Very,
he was like, no.
well, it's very much like one of my favorite records when I used to collect records that I owned was a record my dad had, and it was called Kings of Heavy Metal, and had like the typical like 70s or 80s heavy metal lady on the front of it, and it was like as gross as that sounds. But then you flip it over, and the Kings of Heavy Metal were like the Doobie Brothers, the Doors, and like two other like bands that I'm like, what heavy metal was this?
Molly Hatchet, Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden wasn't
Judas
on it.
Priest.
Believe it or not, Judas Priest was. Iron Maiden was not.
Yeah, so you go back and listen to those bands.
Yeah.
And you take that to compared to what is considered to be like heavy metal nowadays, and you will legit have people tell you that's not metal, the vocals are clean.
Well, that's it.
And not clean is in, like not clean is in like they're not cursing. Clean is in the person's actually singing and not like growling or belching into the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where that's why I like Ghost, because Ghost reminds me of like the original heavy metal bands.
I didn't know you liked Ghost. Ryan, I love Ghost.
Yeah, so like Ghost reminds me of like Ghost, for me anyway, is in the same vein as like the early metal bands from like the 70s and the very early 80s. And that to me is where I consider Ghost metal. Yeah. Like they are a modern day classic metal band.
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally fair.
That uses pop riffs.
Yeah, but
it's fine.
But that's the thing is it's that like classic versus modern like definition of the thing, and everything is so much more like intense now, and it's the same thing for the movies. So I love that and love that debate. So I think the last thing I'm going to do then, since you didn't watch Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, is Ryan, I'm going to try to sell you on Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Okay?
No. Actually,
yeah,
you can still do that, but I just want to tell you that, like, unless you're planning on having us watch the rest of the Mission Impossible movies, like, I'm going to watch them.
Okay.
Like watching Ghost Protocol is like, I'm interested in what's actually happening with this, because, like I said, The Mummy that he was in, and then this movie, those two combined has finally gotten my brain to flip over and be like, dude, it's been like 15 years. Just
you're all right. It's that time to breathe. So there is. Yeah. I specifically want you to watch Dead Reckoning for the podcast, and I'm going to say that because it feeds into a conversation that we had last week that I literally got excited to talk to you about today. Okay. So
what was that conversation? Because I forget.
The main villain in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning is AI. It is an artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That knows and has predicted what will happen before the human characters have. That's the bad guy. And that's almost verbatim what you had said your scary thing about AI was last week.
Yeah, like that like, and then if that AI can do that, at what point does that AI, do you consider that to be sentient or not? And then if that's the case, how do you handle that situation?
Yeah.
Obviously, if the intentions are, like deadly, you would handle that the way you would handle someone who is flesh and blood doing the same thing. The way you would handle like a rabid bear in a mall.
Yeah, right.
God, where did that analogy come from?
You know what? I'm here for it. Give me more the bear in the mall.
Yeah. So, there's that, but that's pretty much, I mean, this gets into like Terminator, like science fiction horror territory of like, you've got this AI that then thinks for itself and it sees humanity as the enemy, and then all of this crazy stuff happens. Like, I understand that can be kind of a jump tech wise compared to where we are. Like the whole thing with the Last of Us, because it takes millions of years for fungus to evolve to work with the
Right.
brain of like any species. So like anyone out there who's worried about cordyceps,
Don't be.
you've got 30 million years before we have to worry about anything like
You
that.
got time,
And
man.
maybe like fungus in the blood causing infections, yeah, that could be something that we could be seeing and dealing with. But we're not going to be ants marching around with stems out of our heads.
Unless you're Dave Matthews.
Unless you're Dave Matthews, or dumping poop on people in Chicago. Anyway.
Oh no, too soon.
That happened in 2004. It's not too soon.
It's too soon for them. I would never forget that.
So, oh God, we're goddamn ADHD brain.
No, I love it. It was about the AI and how that's like a bit of a leap where we are now.
Yeah, like it's definitely a leap from where we are. But it's something again that we need to be thinking about now before we get to that point, because unfortunately, you don't know you're there until it happens.
Well, and that's kind of the tone of the movie. And it's interesting.
Oh, nice. Okay.
The tone of the movie is we're here now, and there's a scene in it where the bad guy goes, "I'm gonna have the thing I want by tomorrow at noon." And I know it's going to happen because it's been predicted to happen. Look who's here!
Hey.
Alan's here.
Hey.
Look at you.
Hi.
So I tuned in for a little bit. How'd you guys get on the subject of heavy metal?
We were talking about how action movies and what's being perceived as an action movie has changed over the years to the point where, very similar to how heavy metal is, where, the first Mission Impossible, you remember it being like an action movie, but actually, like, we debated whether or not it was even a thriller instead of an action movie, to the point where now modern Mission Impossible is just more action in the first minute of that movie than there was in any part of the other movies.
Okay.
Yeah, we got there in the end.
Yeah, and then using metal from like the 70s compared to now is like an example of like how that changes and what the meaning is, and like how metal fans today would like look at Iron Maiden and be like, yeah, they're the godfathers of metal, but that doesn't sound like what I'm listening to now. And it's this thing with the Mission Impossible movies.
So Alan, how much of the podcast have you listened to? Because if not, we have a surprise for you.
Not much.
Okay, great. Ryan, do you want to tell him the surprise?
So I watched Ghost Protocol for this.
So we're doing this one again! Because we didn't talk about this when we talked about Ghost Protocol.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone caught this, but I've been putting increasingly unhinged photos of Tom Cruise up as the podcast goes on, and just switch back to the poster.
Okay, I didn't see that. All I saw was the post.
Good. You're in for a treat then when you watch this back.
That was the Ghost Protocol poster that was up?
It is now.
Okay. I was like, that doesn't seem like the right poster. Like, what's going on here?
But yeah, so really, that's all I had. I'm glad you joined, Alan. Welcome.
Yeah.
Alan,
so we're talking Ghost Protocol?
We just ended the conversation. Do you have anything to add about Ghost Protocol, Alan?
It was cool in IMAX.
I bet it was cool in IMAX.
I could imagine that, being in
Dubai. I saw it.
Yeah.
Kevin, I saw it with you in IMAX.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You were breaking up.
I saw Ghost Protocol with you.
Nope, don't.
He saw Ghost Protocol with you in IMAX.
No, I heard him. I'm just being a jerk.
Oh, okay.
It was very cool in IMAX.
I didn't have to call in.
I missed you, Alan. Don't worry about it.
So my coolest part of Ghost Protocol though, was the ridiculousness of, because again, this movie is from 2011. If I would have seen this in 2011, I thought that his phone thing would have been cool, but now it's just funny when he's chasing the guy through the sandstorm.
Oh yeah.
That was one of those moments where, like, I was going from liking it ironically to actually liking it back and forth like 4 or 5 times throughout that entire setup of him chasing the guy through the sandstorm up into the end. Like,
I thought the sandstorm
that
was very
really
cool.
well
I liked that scene
Mhm.
a lot. And in IMAX, with Alan, with whom I've seen it, the sandstorm just coming across to you, like, in the theater was a very, very cool, like, effect. Like, that's one of the standout moments for me.
Yeah.
Devin, do you remember why we saw that in IMAX?
Because of the Superman trailer prior to it.
Dark Knight Rises. It was the
I tried
prologue.
so hard, man. It was the Dark Knight Rises trailer.
We did see. Well, I see where you got confused. We did see Superman Returns on the same.
That was it. That was exactly it. Yeah, because that was the one in Strawberry Square.
Yeah, at the Whitaker Center.
I miss that place. I miss it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't really have much on that one.
Well, listen, we'll get to.
Did you watch the right sequel to Lilo and Stitch or
did.
not?
I did actually. I watched like the first like 30 minutes of it, and then I had to get on here.
Alan, did you watch Stitch 2? Stitch is a Glitch?
I did.
Hold on.
And I watched Lilo and Stitch.
Hold on. The new one?
No, I watched the original and then I watched the sequel.
Did you know? I didn't know. Learned this for the podcast today, and we talked about this earlier, but I want to know if you know. The actor in it that plays Nani.
Schwing. Yeah.
Yeah! That's awesome. I learned that today.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite part was the very end, when Stitch dies and then comes back to life, and Blinkley goes, "How did it happen?" And Jamba goes, "I don't know." And then they move on. No explanation. Just,
yeah.
You don't deserve one. We're moving on.
When that happened, I had to like laugh to myself because I automatically, my mind went to Stitch had a glitch and now they got to put him in a ditch.
Yeah. Was this the other thing I had was that the backgrounds of of it bothered me because they were very static and the characters weren't static, and that bugged me a lot. Did you experience that as well, or did you expect it from a straight to VHS Disney movie?
Well, in doing some research of my own for the podcast,
look at you,
because I fully expected to be there. They originally wanted it to be in theater.
Oh.
So I think some of that is them just reusing the backgrounds from other Stitch things because this isn't the first sequel to Lilo and Stitch.
Nope.
And they also had the series. They also had the original movie. So I think it was a little bit lower budget, but that you get that a lot with animation.
Yeah.
Like it's usually the static backgrounds and then the animations on top, especially when you're doing a hybrid of hand drawn and CGI.
That's fair. It bugged me to no end. I was like, come on, guys, try a little harder in my Lilo and Stitch sequel. Ugh. But that's all I have, to be fair, guys.
Okay.
Whose pick is it next week?
It's your pick. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. I'll have to let you guys know what it is.
Yeah, no problem. You are literally
fine.
in your car
That's
right
fine.
now.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. I think I know what it is.
What is it?
I know what the next one I wanted to do was. We're gonna time travel, guys. So
Okay.
get your swimsuits on. We're going to go in the hot tub time machine.
You jerk. I can't wait to watch this.
You guys haven't seen it, right?
I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it either.
Okay. I have a story about this one. But yeah, I caught it on cable the other day, and I was like, I'm going to make the guys watch it on the podcast. So that's my pick. Hot tub time machine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I do have a question. There's not like a hot tub time machine Ghost Protocol one, right? Because I want to make sure that I watch the right one this time.
There is a hot tub time machine 2.
What?
But you want to watch Hot Tub Time Machine 1.
They made a sequel?
Yeah, they did a sequel.
Yeah.
What? Is Larry the Cable Guy in it?
No, but they replaced John Cusack with Adam Scott. So it might be better.
Oh, I
Like-
like Adam Scott.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Maybe I'll watch it. Cool.
Maybe I will too.
Well, Alan, since you're here, do you want to do the ending?
Nah, you do it.
All right, perfect. Well, that's all we have this week for You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Devon.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Alan.
And hey, if you liked what you heard, be sure to follow us on YouTube. We release new videos every week. I think next week is going to be Wednesday, so give us a chance there. Give us a follow there. We also stream to Twitch on You Have to Watch This Pod. We're on Instagram, You Have to Watch This Podcast, as well as on Facebook. You can watch us and all other Rum Runners Network podcasts on rumrunnersnetworkpodcasts.com, I believe is something like that. Just Google Rum Runners Podcast, you'll find us, and all of the other great Rum Runners Podcast things. Otherwise, thank you guys so much, and catch you next week when we review Hot Tub Time Machine.